Hello, and welcome to this short video today because you've had the menopause meal plan, and I wanted to now tell you how you can apply this and why it works so well to help with menopause weight loss. And I'm just going to go through some of the changes that happen when we go through menopause that are directly related to weight gain, so that you can see for yourself how the changes that you'll make with that meal plan are going to work together to help you lose weight now, because it is possible, even though it feels really hard. But I want to just give you a little bit of an introduction to me before I do that, so you understand why I'm in a position to be able to tell you this, and with some certainty as well. My name's Gabrielle, which you probably know already, and I'm 54. I became a personal trainer when I was 48. And back then, there was a lot less information than there is now, I should say, about menopause. And I was going through perimenopause. Kept getting injured when I tried to exercise. I had loads of cravings. I was worried about weight gain. I was gaining weight. My old diets didn't work. It was just a lot going on. And once I realized that I was perimenopausal, I really wanted to be doing the right things, but I couldn't find out what that even was. So that was the key that made me decide to retrain as a personal trainer and a corrective exercise specialist. And since then, I've taken courses that specialize in menopause, understanding the science behind what we now know does work when it comes to diet and exercise for peri and postmenopausal women. Because fortunately, now we are in a much better position where there are scientific studies that are starting to give us some really good answers and some really good information that we can use. I don't know if you've heard of Stacey Sims. I've done her course that she did for trainers and health professionals. And I've documented my own journey. I've been through a big weight gain of 30 pounds, which is quite typical for weight loss, and struggled with that. Figured out how to lose all of that and keep that off. And since I became a personal trainer, practically all of my clients have been peri and postmenopausal women. And I've worked with around 200 women to date, both in person in my little gym, which is where I am now, as one-on-one personal training, and also online. And I've put a lot of those women through this same program, the same meal plan that you've had, and I know it works. I also know when it doesn't work, I also understand the reasons why. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about in this as well. So you can understand why, when we get some things right, but not others, we can find that it doesn't work. But I've seen so many successes time and time again, not just on weight loss, but less cravings, more energy, better sleep, just feeling like you've got your brain back. Because you're not fighting hunger or fighting cravings all the time. You've got better energy. You can just get on with your life. And it's so simple. And, I don't think we tell women enough about how straightforward it can be to actually start to lose weight. So let's talk about why we gain weight in menopause now, because it's important that we do know that. Then it makes it very clear about why this meal plan works. Okay. Now, there are a few things that cause weight gain for menopausal women, and part of it is the fact that our muscle mass has been declining since we were in our mid-30s. We can often become less active because we haven't got time, but our diets don't change. So we don't need as many calories, but we're eating the same. That can start to mean that the pounds creep on, but we don't always notice that at first because it's fairly slow. What can happen around menopause is the weight gain can start to accelerate. And that's because we've got less estrogen. And estrogen has so many functions in our body. And up until the time when our estrogen levels start to decline, it's had quite a protective role in guarding against weight gain. But when it does start to decline, we lose that protection. And there are a number of systems that it impacts that also affect our weight. And this is why we get to a point in our lives when cutting calories and doing more exercise, it might have worked really well for us when we were younger, but now it doesn't. And this is going to help you understand why that's the case. So, and when we gain weight, I should say, in menopause, the average weight gain during that menopause period is around 10 kilos. And over 50% of women, or around 50% of women, will actually experience weight gain during the course of menopause. So so many of us are affected by that. But we're not just seeing an increase in what's called subcutaneous fat. That's the fat on our limbs that's under our skin that you can quite easily pinch. We're also seeing big changes in our visceral fat. And that is a problem because that is quite unhealthy fat. And visceral fat is different to subcutaneous fat because it sits under our muscles. It's padding our organs. It's going in and around all of our organs. So it's all in the middle part of our body. And it's what's called metabolically active. And that is a negative thing because it starts to influence a few things that can affect our health down the line. Having more visceral fat is linked to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, insulin resistance, an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So it is important that we understand what we can do to start to lose this visceral fat. Before menopause, that visceral fat is around 5 to 8% of total body fat, but it goes up to between 10 and 15% of our total body weight. So we need to be able to look at that and understand how to reduce it. So that gives you some context about how much weight we're gaining and why it really is a problem that we need to address. We've got some context about why we start to gain, but let's just dig into a little bit more about what the hormonal changes of menopause actually do to us. Well, firstly, it causes an increase in inflammation. So estrogen protects us from inflammation, and when it's gone or when it's going or there's a lot less of it, our systemic inflammation can actually rise. And that is known to be linked to weight gain, and it can also hinder weight loss. So we can be trying to eat less, trying to move more, but if we've got a lot of inflammation, we're not, that may stop that happening for us. The change in estrogen levels also impacts our gut microbiome. And that means that we have less good bacteria and the bad bacteria starts to proliferate. So it goes out of balance. That is also known to increase weight gain. Then we have insulin resistance. So menopause can impact our insulin resistance, which we know leads to increased body fat. Many women will suffer from poor sleep quality or less sleep. That has a direct impact on our hunger hormones. It makes us more hungry. It makes us crave more sort of highly palatable foods. And even overeating by just a couple of 100 calories every day is enough to have weight gain over time. And the whole menopause thing and midlife gives us a lot more stress. The changes our body are undergoing are stressful. And as women, we are more impacted by stress. We are less resilient to stress than we were when we were younger. We might feel more anxious, more overwhelmed. We can't stop our brain racing. We just can feel stressed all day long. And that elevated cortisol, which is what happens when we're stressed, is also linked to an increase in body fat, particularly body fat around the abdomen. And it's important to say at this point that stress includes work stress, life stress, personal stress, whatever it is that stresses you out is stress. But also, and we don't realize this, but fasting, eating too little, not eating enough protein, and over exercising is causing extra stress on our bodies as well. And very much, I see with my clients that, and myself, a lot of this is my own learnings about myself as well, that the combined stress with menopause cruelly comes in midlife, which is also a really difficult life stage for a lot of women. And so we're trying to deal with heavier workloads, aging parents, teenagers, kids going to university. We've still got financial pressures, we've still got to work. And then we're dealing with all the menopause symptoms, which make life really difficult. So we're just under so much pressure. And that can affect our lifestyle choices. We might need to rely on caffeine a lot more to give us the energy that we need to just get everything done. We might not have time or the motivation to eat properly, which means we're not getting the right nutrition. We might just be needing more snacks to keep us going. If we're not eating properly, we're just grabbing what we can because we just have this real need that we have to eat something to give us the fuel, energy to go. And life can start to feel a bit like not very satisfying. We can really struggle. We can feel that we're just working so hard and there's no time for us. We don't have much pleasure in life anymore because that menopause will dull our pleasure hormones. And we then start to look for food and sometimes alcohol that's going to give us that little bit of pleasure. If you're having a pretty shitty day, then of course you're going to want to have a glass of wine or a bar of chocolate or have a dessert or a bag of crisps, whatever your thing is. Those are all things that are very accessible, very socially acceptable, and really effective at giving us an instant shot of pleasure. So but they start to mean that we eat more calories. So we can see how there's a really complex picture emerging here of many factors at the same time that are contributing to this weight gain, both this weight gain just general all over our body, but also, and everyone's different. Some people might find they get more abdominal fat. Some people might see it coming all over, but we can see why now it's happening and we're starting to gain this weight. And, I talked about the health aspect of this, but quite frankly, a lot of us care more about what we look like or feeling that we're losing control of our bodies, our clothes start to feel tight or we can't fit in them. It's really, really distressing. And what happens then is we start to focus more on what's a more urgent issue for us to lose that weight rather than worry about the potential health implications because we imagine they're further down the road. And that leads us to have a bigger focus on diet than nutrition. And when I say that, I mean cutting calories, being on a diet. But what happens is many women find that dieting doesn't work. And I think when I look at the clients I've had and what I know so far, we start to fall into one of two camps at this stage. Some women just start to go down the diet route and they eat low calories, they pick up the exercise, but that doesn't work. They're still gaining weight or they're not losing it. So they cut the calories even lower, do more exercise. That doesn't work. They start to try fasting and really start to then be existing on very little food because they start to worry then that if they start to eat more, they'll gain even more weight than they have done already. Then you've got another contingent of women. This is where I was, where I just couldn't face the idea of being hungry. I would try some calorie restriction for a short period of time, but I just couldn't ever stick to a diet for very long before it started to feel too hard, before stress and cravings kicked in that I just couldn't resist. So I would be more of a camp of trying to diet, having small meals, trying to eat less because I was having so many cravings and having so many calories from just wanting to eat all the time. I started to try and save on my meals so that I would bring my calories down so I could keep grazing all day. So we have these two types of profiles really. And we both get stuck. It's not working for either of us because what's happening is we're not getting the right nutrition. We're not working with our body and what it needs now. So what does work? I'm going to talk about food first because food is just one part of the equation now. There are smart things you can do from an exercise point of view that help. Food is going to be the biggest thing that has an impact, but sleep and stress management have a huge impact now. So if you're really not sleeping, if you're very stressed, then it's likely that you're going to find it very difficult to stick to this meal plan that works. So you have to start to look at how you can address your sleeping and stress issues. Exercise, the good news is we don't have to do as much exercise as we need to. I'm glad I could give you one bit of good news in all of this. And knowing what the right type of exercise is quite important because that we want to be doing things that are going to be less stressful on our body, but I will talk about that a little bit later on. So let's talk about nutrition. So you've had your meal plan and that has a little bit of information in there. It has some recipes, But basically, what that meal plan is doing, it's giving you a big focus on having really good quality nutrition and basing your diet on that. And that means having plenty of protein, having plenty of vegetables, and making some smart changes with the carbs, which I'll go into in a bit more. And the overall picture of this, when we make these changes, is that we are giving our body the nutrients it needs to function well. That's really important. Because we'll feel better if we're giving ourselves the fuel we need. Yeah. We're giving ourselves more protein. That turns off hunger and craving signals really effectively. So we can have these big filling meals 3 times a day, and we start to not need to snack. And that's a place where we then start to save a lot of calories and a lot of empty carbohydrates. Then we have another within this meal, within this program, we are having more nutrition from our fruit and vegetables, which means that we're increasing the amount of fiber that we're having. That's going to start to support our gut microbiome. When we're putting fat in our meals, which we still need, we're going to be favoring things like olive oil, nuts, avocados, flaxseed oil, linseeds, chia seeds, and avocado, I couldn't think of the word, oily fish. Those things are going to help lower our inflammation, as well as the vegetables, which will do that, and any spices and herbs that you use are all going to support you with that. And when we look at a meal, we're going to think that we put in our protein first, then we're putting our vegetables is the second priority, making sure we have plenty of those. And then the carbs, really, as long as they're part of a meal, you can pretty much have whatever you want. And this is important because people think they have to give up carbs, and we don't. Too many carbs will spike our blood sugar. A lot of carbs don't have many nutrients in there. So when our diet is primarily based on carbs, we're not getting good nutrition. But this means that we are. So now we can start to have our favorite carbs again, our bread, our pasta, rice, noodles, whatever we want. And knowing that that's going to be part of a meal, and we're not going to see those big spikes in blood sugar. But we've also having that meal with plenty of protein, loads of fruit and vegetables, healthy fat that's going to lower our inflammation. So we're not sacrificing nutrition like that. You can, and to really get the best of this, you can swap the white things for brown things. You can start using things more lentils and chickpeas and oats, those sorts of whole grain carbohydrates or whole food carbohydrates that are more nutritious. But I always think that that's down to you and down to preference, because it's really important that we enjoy our meals. And if you having a little bit of pasta or some bread with a meal means that you enjoy it more, then that's going to make this much easier to stick to. You're still getting a great balanced diet with loads of nutrition. So you're going to start to feel better than you ever have done before, but you're also going to be enjoying your food. So it'll be easier to stick with. And the key thing, something that I've changed myself quite recently, is having regular meals at regular times of the day. And that would be having my breakfast at a set time, having my lunch at a set time, and trying to have my dinner around the same time as well. And I found that's really helped to stabilize my energy levels, because my body's got used to this rhythm of all these great nutrients being delivered to me at regular intervals throughout the day. And I feel like I'm really thriving on that. And if you think about it, particularly if you're going through perimenopause, our hormones are absolutely going haywire. There's no routine or regular pattern anymore, which is what we had in the past. So if we can introduce things like regular meals, regular nutrition, a regular sleep schedule, that can actually really help us to feel a little bit more balanced whilst this all goes on. So this is why the meal plan that I've given you works so fantastically. It's giving you the energy you need to get through your day. It's getting you off that sugar roller coaster. It's leveling out your insulin levels. It's leveling out the blood sugar. It's giving you consistent energy throughout the day. It's taking the stress away from you because you've been well fed. It's supporting your gut microbiome with all the fiber. It's anti-inflammatory with the types of food that you're having. And, this will lead to weight loss because you're helping your body get function well. And then your body will start to allow it to lose weight. And I've seen this happen time and time again. It seems crazy when we used to be thinking less calories is better, but it's really different now. And if you're a chronic snacker like I was, you'll find it so much easier not to eat in between meals when you eat that way. And for those women, you save a whole lot of calories because you're not snacking all the time. And your 3 meals a day actually adds up to a lot less than you think, but just gives you the nutrition that your body needs to work well, to function well, and to be relaxed enough and not too stressed to allow it to start tapping into the fat stores and burning that. So anecdotally, I know that these changes work really effectively, like I say, on all these women. They report having more energy, have more focus, more mental clarity. Some notice they can sleep better. And that has a knock-on effect on everything, because when you've got consistent energy, when you're well rested, when you're not battling hunger and cravings, life just gets easier. But as I mentioned, these dietary changes do go hand in hand with addressing sleep and stress. And some sleep issues are wholly down to your hormones. Other sleep issues can be down to blood sugar dips in the night. So I think when people report that they sleep better, it's likely that they weren't sleeping because of their blood sugar dipping in the night. So when they're stabilizing that, they're getting better sleep. Some women have a very high stress load and their cortisol levels are high all the time. And in that instance, you don't really relax enough before bed. Your cortisol levels haven't dropped enough. So you might fall asleep okay, but you will not feel that you're getting into a deep restorative sleep. You might wake up really easily. And when you do, your brain fires up and it's very hard for you to get back to sleep, or it takes a long time. And so this is why sometimes we have to acknowledge and accept that, even if we make these dietary changes, sometimes we also have to look at the stress and the sleep as well. And that can be hard to hear for some people because we want to just change our diet and lose the weight. But actually, if you're having terrible sleep, if you are really highly stressed and really strung out all the time, one, you may well see that you do all the nutrition perfectly and it doesn't work for you. I have seen that happen. Or you are just so stressed and tired that you just can't stick to that diet. You still get the cravings, or you just end up, your brain's all over the place. You feel like it's not working. You feel like it's never going to work for you. You feel like there's no point, so you haven't got the motivation to keep going with it. So it's important that we look at how we can improve our sleep, because quite often we can make some improvements, and how we learn to take some of the stress out of our lives. I'm not going to talk about that here. That's something I do help my clients with. We look at how we stop how we react to stress and trying to tone that down, because quite often it's not actual things happening that we have to keep reacting to. It's our brains going crazy that's keeping us in this really permanent high state of alert, even when we don't need to be. So we need to learn how to calm that down so that we know we can give ourselves permission to relax, and then also give ourselves permission to take a little bit of time out for us. And that's how we balance the stress, because very many women just feel like they've always got jobs to do and feel guilty if they sit down. So we have to look at changing the narrative around that and allowing you to just calm down, take some time out, and learn how to feel okay about doing that. That can be a game changer as well. I said I'd touch on exercise. Now, all exercise is great. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a runner. I love, I love exercise. But if you are coming to this with a very pure focus on fat loss, and I'll also say if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of time, or who doesn't have a lot of energy, then the good news is that you will still get results if you focus on getting an early night and following that meal plan. That will still work for you. The exercise isn't really going to be the determining factor that we think it is that's going to decide whether you do or don't lose weight. Now, how we want to look at exercise now, and again, if our focus is weight loss, then the best thing that you can do is ditch the cardio, that's stressful, it's not making a difference, and add in strength training as instead. What strength training does, it protects us against muscle loss, because when you are in a small calorie deficit, which you will be on the plan you've got, then you will lose weight. And when you lose weight, no matter what, we lose a mixture of weight from muscles and weight from fat. And what we want to do as middle-aged women, we'd want to hang on to that fat. So adding strength training means that we don't want to hang on to the fat, we want to hang on to the muscle. So adding strength training into your week means that you will lose less muscle and more fat. And that's important. And from an exercise point of view, in terms of calorie burn, we want to think differently than feeling that you have to go for a run because that's stressful. So we want to switch instead to what's called low intensity, steady state exercise. And that means a walk, a cycle, anything that you do as a continuous movement that you can maintain for half an hour or an hour, but keep having a conversation. That's the level of intensity that needs to be. This is powerful, actually, because when you cut calories a little bit, your body's quite smart and it will think, okay, I'm not getting as much food as I need, so I'll just take it easy and do less. So if you create that discipline or that routine of having 30 minutes or an hour, depending on how much time you have, of this regular low intensity exercise, then that's just a way of keeping that baseline of activity in your body and that baseline calorie burn so that you really get the benefit of that little deficit that you're having through your diet. Okay. So that is why this meal plan is so effective, because it's taking stress away from your body by giving it the nutrients it needs. It's supporting the gut microbiome. It's stabilizing your blood sugar levels, and it's also helping reduce and manage inflammation. And it's really simple. I felt I was going to apologize then for it being so simple, but actually I think that's good news. You don't have to fast. You don't have to have very low calories. You just have to eat well. And when you follow this approach, you will lose weight, but also you will feel a whole lot better. And actually that changes your life as much as anything else. So I hope you found this really interesting and really helpful, more to the point, and that you feel clear now with the combination of this and the meal plan that you have on how to put a little plan together for yourself and have the motivation to stick to it, because you know it's going to work, you know it's going to improve a whole lot more than just your weight. And if you feel that you just need some support, or you would like to understand a little bit more about working with me on a one-to-one basis to give you that extra support and accountability, then please just get in touch. We can have a nice chat about it. I'll tell you how it works. You can see if you feel like it would be, helpful for you, and we'll take it from there. But enjoy the rest of your day. Hope to hear from you again. And thanks again for watching this. All the best.